Hello and welcome to All My Art and Soul. I'm Michelle Holden, and this week we are going to change it up. I'm going to be taking a break from my art journaling and going ahead and moving on to two watercolor heavy, I think they're 140 pound, 10 by 10s with taped edges. And as you can see, I've activated the surfaces already just with words. It's sort of like stream writing is what I really like to do, and which puts an intention, an energy into the piece. It'll be totally or mostly covered up in the end. And if you're interested, I've also did a couple of previous videos, mixed media collage tutorial, and so check those out. Those are in my video library. So let's get on with these two pieces. And don't forget, if you're really liking this content, please hit the like button and subscribe. Also, if you're really into it and want to follow along, please do so. I like to change it up, and what I've been doing with my abstract art journaling is just experimenting, exploring, and discover what it is that I feel my voice needs to say with abstraction. So as you can see, I've used my wedge, I forget the name again, but that's okay. And I really like when you put a little bit of, I think it's titanium white on it. It just leaves such a perfect veil across, almost as if it was a piece of tissue paper. And right after this video, I will be making, or have, and I will be uploading it, making a whole bunch more of black and white collage papers, both with tissue paper and the deli paper and the Japanese handcrafted paper. So keep a heads up for those. So trying to avoid it from tearing, I'm slowly learning to, well, put the heavy gloss medium on the surface first and just watch how much I'm adding pressure to as I'm pushing it. Enough to get the bubbles out, but not enough to tear it up. So what's happening with these pieces and why I like working with these is just that you can rotate them around. I've done that with a couple of pieces before that were not exactly square, and then of course in the end ended up with two different sort of sizes. One was the wider direction, and one was the taller direction. But that's okay. These are just experiments. And again, remember, I am not intending this to be a final piece or a couple of art pieces, and I'm choosing to work with them together, sort of to maintain a flow. I also like to work with the same size in 6s and 9s, and I also like to work with 2 or 3 canvases, even more, if I can put them up in my studio. And I am in the middle now working on my much larger work, taking what I've learned from my art journaling experiences to larger work. And so let's talk about, let's do some think alouds as to what it is I'm trying to achieve here. So again, there's that tissue paper giving me a hard time, but you know what? It ends up sort of distorted and it looks pretty cool as long as I can allow it to lie flat. And that is a stencil girl stencil, the very small 4x4 inch ones. And I find for this size piece or this size artwork in art journaling, it's perfect. Now, if I'm going to apply the same types of processes here for my larger work with my geometric stencils, There's a 12-inch by 12-inch of the same ones, the same set that you've seen me use, hexagons, triangles, cubes, etc. They both come in 7-inch and 12-inch on Amazon. Now, I am not getting anything from Amazon. Maybe one day I will, who knows, but that's where I order some of my work, some of my materials. So there seems to be slowly a grid kind of, what do we want to say, composition occurring. And the fortunate thing, as I've mentioned it before, when you record your process, you get to revisit it and notice things that while you were in the, in the spin, I'll call it, in the intuitive spin, you don't notice. And I always preview my videos a couple of times before I do my voiceover again. And these two have been sitting around for a little while, and I'm glad they have, because what I know now and have learned from my previous of Earth and Sky and my abstract art journaling pages, it is now slowly seeping through. So what I've learned is doing less high contrast layers beside each other, maybe laying those down first, because it doesn't really matter. Just you're enjoying the how the colors relate to each other on the color wheel. Maybe you're just using the same ones that you like all the time, adding a few more colors in there with your palette. I like orange and blue, the teals, the ambers, the nickel azo. And as you can see, I'm taking that and using a bright orange, and I believe I'm mixing it with yellow oxide and a very bright cadmium orange, or just a true orange, and a little bit of yellow Hansa. And I'm just putting in squares in different areas. Before this, these two, I started these, there it is. Yes. So that is a very beautiful bright yellow, just a regular orange, just inexpensive acrylics from Michaels. Some of them are Liquitex, golden. So I use a variety of brands. And I'm liking the black and white mixed with a few colors. And I really love how the yellows and the turquoise go with the black and white. This was a piece of, actually, this was some numbers, lottery ticket numbers that, of course, I did not win. And I thought, you know what, I'll throw these down because I just really like the feel of numbers, combinations, patterns. And I thought, oh, I'll use these in one of my pages. So here we go. You never know. And so why I chose to put it there is that it's sort of continuing that white in a much more opaque fashion, mind you, and continuing the eye up and around. So I'm always trying to treat each piece and the entire piece, not just focusing on one area of one piece. So you're just trying to distribute things, and I'm always in the back of my mind now, which I've learned, is to use the odd numbers, 3s, 5s, and 7s. And sometimes these pieces will form their own quadrants just naturally. Sometimes it'll be a grid of 6 or 9. And it's just really interesting how when I watch myself create, how these things change. So that black is going in really strong. Now, when I see what I'm doing, I'm really using a lot of black. That was my go-to at during this time. And I've learned that a little black is good. A lot of black can be good, but sometimes it just, you know, we can go in and cover it up again. And it adds such a wonderful weight to the back of any color. So here I'm drawing, and after I finish drawing this layer, I will probably rotate in another direction. I'm really liking the one on the left with the turquoise, and as I add the one on the left with the upper left hand corner, which is a neutral, a very light value with pencils going through it, I find a way to carry on that same feeling. So it's all about a feeling that I'm looking for. And so I rotate that one and I rotate that one. Okay, I'm liking this. Probably because how they look together. You have a black up below and it's balancing with the black lower. And yes, that's the area I'm pointing to. So one thing that I'm learning is a difference that is a wonderful contrast to all the busyness is space and quiet. And I'm really, really starting to notice that now. So after you do a few loud layers and get so much on it, it's like, what am I going to do now? What do I do next? So that's the time to start covering back up. And yes, we must sacrifice certain things. Maybe not all of them, but some things, maybe they won't get entirely veiled. Maybe they'll still peek through. But don't forget, the energy of those things are still there under the layers. And I really like that feeling of the one on the left carrying on that white or that neutral and allowing space next to the black and white, the white with black dot organic square shape. And so I'm seeing too that if I treated the turquoise that is in the lower third of that square that I'm working on right now as I speak, rather than going in with orange again. So stay tuned. This is just part one. And I do believe these two will just have a part two, but you never know. They might need a part three depending on how it goes. So I'm really looking forward into carrying on the layers. So see, as what I just did there. So even I'm really liking the turquoise more than the carrying on that white from the numbers. And I realized up there is where that white needed to go. And after you roll your brayer across it, it really lifts just enough paint away. So thinking about more patterns, probably not. It's probably busy enough, Michelle. So I'm really liking this piece and wish I put it right next, moved it over more, even on top of that white. That was right next to the orange. That would have looked good, but for some reason, I didn't put it down there. Knowing that I still have some of this, and yeah, see, it would have worked in either of those places where there's orange, and that's where we're going in for just more subtlety, just with some more pattern. But as I've realized too, you can have too many patterns conflicting with each other. So keeping the patterning to a minimum is what I'm thinking for the feel that I'm looking for. And just going in with marks, subtlety, shapes, and other choices rather than patterns. So there's the big black piece. I don't know if I like that choice or not, but That's okay. Interesting. Very interesting. I would have preferred something subtle now because, this has been a while. It's been at least a week. What I've learned is to, with that turquoise that's below, to carry on in and around and add some quiet. So mixing the turquoise with a little bit of white and a little bit of the yellow oxide to give that sort of that nice antique tone. I'm really liking this. Yes, and it's much better that I rolled a little bit of it away, so why not do more? And I'm noticing the more black I take away from this particular piece, the energy of it feels much better. Very interesting. So let's do that. Now, I don't know if that was a smart move. Noticing the one on the left, where the numbers, I think, look better white or neutral rather than the turquoise, but we'll take care of that too. So another thing that I've been learning to do and that I will be focusing on in my next series of videos is shapes or shape. Shapes that I want, shapes that speak to me. And really, really loving these colors that are happening. So I'm really going to continue working with this combination, this color palette. Black, white, nickel azo, yellow oxide, turquoise, Titan buff. And I think that's all we will need. Now, I'm sure that one got a little muddied. I think a real turquoise good, so maybe I'm paying attention. And wondering what to do with the vertical lines or stripes. So here comes some black, which with white circles, which is going to balance off the upper left-hand corner of this particular piece nicely. And I do believe it's 3 or a partly cropped third circle, which then makes it a little different. And really liking that. Realizing that I did end up covering up all of that nice white that was happening. But notice the lines of the upper part of these 3 circles carry on from the line on the left, and it sort of goes through and behind that dotted square shape. So these shapes and areas will naturally line up themselves over time. So a lot of orange, yellow going on. I love the little small 9-dot square that I put everywhere, 369, that kind of thing going on. Oh no more circles, please. We've got enough circles going on. Now, lots more circles, but in a different form. Let's see what I do. Yes. Carrying on the white, covering that black. That looks so much better, and I do keep it, yes, but then I end up rotating them around, and then I find some nice handcrafted paper, which I did not make. These are those scraps that I've purchased in bundles again, which I've mentioned many times. See how it emulates the upper right hand neutral area. Excuse me. But these lines on this paper are silver, and it's sort of a really cool, interesting pattern. And I snipped that because I did not want the little square covered, and I wanted the line, the eye, to follow the line up, over from the right to the left and up and over. So that's what we're doing. So I really like this paper, so I'm adding it to some more areas. That's a good spot. Now, do I want to cover up the black and white there? I think both would have worked. I think I would have liked that in that area. So we'll see what happens in part two. So stay tuned for part two of these two abstract 10 by 10s on 140-pound watercolor paper. It is a really good surface to work on. I also gesso them first, then add the tape. And now that I have the yellow tape, I think that is a much better choice and way easier to peel off, especially if you're going to have these sitting around for a long time. And just putting in, trying to think of distributing some more different tones in a different values in different ways. I still say more of that white neutral tone will really, really work. So that's what I intend to do. So here's those little lines of, yes, this is now another Stencil Girl stencil that I just repeated across a piece of, I think this is the deli wrap, the deli paper. And I think I was thinking of putting it down, but it might have been too busy. There's already enough pattern going on. I'm still thinking some more veiling and creating some really nice space to really enable some patterns to pop would look really, really cool. So I'm strengthening the hue of this particular area for some reason. We'll find out. And maybe considering the edges of these shapes. Another difference would also be hard edge contrasting with soft edge, a gradated edge, jagged edge. You know, so being able to consider these things while you're making your art is tricky, but it does happen over time, so stick with it. Oh, I remember when my layers were just a mess, and I just didn't know what I was doing, where I was going. And believe me, when your art becomes more clear to you, your voice, oh, it makes it so much more enjoyable. But this doesn't happen overnight. And just, I must have run out of things to do, so I thought of my pastels. After you put down a layer of pastel, I always use the heavy gloss medium with just a narrow brush and add enough of it to coat the pastel so then more paint can go on top, or anything can go on top without any resistance, because this is oil on acrylic. That was a smart move. I really like that. So I continued the circle, but in a totally different way. So I don't want to touch the circles. I do want to, yes, exactly. And if I were to hang these two together, that's the direction I would hang them. And then just toning down some things. I think this is the Titan Buff or a neutral with a lot of water, and really liking that. So I'm starting to listen to the quiet side of, after you have so much going on, now to quiet it down. Even after I intensified the hue of that with the nickel azo, it looked much better with that veil on it. Maybe I didn't like the particular type of layer, so I'm experimenting. No, that needs to stay clean. So I think I'm coming to the end here. So please stay tuned for part two. I don't know if that will be, it'll most likely be next week, but I might do a couple of abstract journal pages in between. Who knows? I'm starting a new journal about color, as you know, and I've mentioned in my comments, so stay tuned for that. So we've got several things going on, and in all of this experimenting and exploring, we'll be recording some large pieces of work, starting with the 24-inch by 24-inch gallery canvases, which I cannot wait to start. So already this piece is starting to feel better, but I think the turquoise or a blue, a cool color, would look much better covering up the black. Who knows what I'll find. So here's the heavy gloss medium. I'm just using my narrow brush just to cover that up and let it sit and dry. And I will let these rest for a little while until I feel I know what needs to happen next in the next layers or two. So I think at least another 3 layers need to happen with these 2 pieces, maybe even 4, and then I think we will be done. They'll tell me when they're ready. So in the comments, how do you know when your work is done or your abstract art journal page? When do you stop? Do you just stop because you've had enough? Do you let the page direct you? Let me know in the comments what some of your techniques or your art process is. So just finishing up with some last thin layers of, and I love the gloss. I love the gloss. So there's a regular gloss medium, there's the heavy gloss gel, there's the matte gel, there's the Mod Podge flat, Mod Podge gloss. All of these mediums are great for this size work. So I will see you in the next video for part 2.